Hi everybody, welcome to Dunnock Studio in the heart of Norfolk, UK. And today we're going to be looking at autumnal colours and working our way through creating a picture using some leaves and berries from the garden. Hi, I'm Jackie and welcome to Dunnock Studio. This channel is here to help you learn to paint. It's about having fun with a paintbrush and a bit of creativity. You're in the right place if you're just starting out or you've got some experience. I teach in person and I'm a qualified tutor, so I'm best placed to help you. It's autumn. It's suddenly arrived here in the UK, and as you can see by my little collection here, there's all sorts of things going off in the garden. Seems to be a good year for berries, etc. So today we're going to look at trying to capture a touch of autumn in your paintings. How do you choose the colours for your painting? Well, the obvious thing to do is go and pick some leaves. This is an ornamental maple tree from the garden. This is a Rowan tree with some beautiful berries on it. This is actually not a garden version, this is a wild version. This is one of the Queen's trees that we planted as tiny whips in our garden, and only 3 years later they're producing all these beautiful berries, fabulous for the birds. An autumn picture can be whatever you want it to be, but you can see underneath here I've got this beautiful array of colours, and for those of you who saw in one of my previous videos, I'll add a link for those of you who can see the links, otherwise I'll drop it in the notes below. I made some watercolour paint of my own, and this is burnt sienna, and straight away that leaps out as being a fabulous match for various autumnal colours, so that one I'm definitely going to be using. If I use the colour wheel, you can see that reds and oranges are all next to oranges and yellows, coming round to the greens here. So you could just do an autumn picture with all the warm colours, but sometimes it's quite nice to offset warm colours with a cool colour, for instance green. Now we're not going to have bright spring zingy greens in an autumn painting, but a nice olivey green that's just a little bit duller, so like the rowan leaves here, you can see I've got hints of red in them. They're not bright green, they're subtle, they're very sort of muted greens. So I shall probably include some greens, more like an olive green in my paintings. Also, coming back to the leaf here, you can see hints with the green. You've got that lovely complementary red and green there, opposites on the colour wheel. And this one's got hints of crimson in it. Can you see that slightly different sort of red to the berries behind? The berries you could say were like a cadmium red, and this is like an alizarin crimson. Cut your palette, have a look at the different reds and greens you might have in the palette. I'm just going to use ultramarine blue mixed with cadmium yellow to make my greens. That makes a dull green. If I used ultramarine blue and lemon yellow, I'd create much brighter greens. You can see I've got a dull green here from a previous painting, probably a muddy mix of all sorts. So I'm going to actually use that to mix my green on. First of all, going to just wake up the mucky bit on my palette, wash my brush out in between, pick up some of the yellow which I have added some water to earlier. The reason I'm putting in the yellow in first is yellow is weaker than blue. So if I start off with the blue, I'll overwhelm the yellow quite a lot quicker. Picking up that again. There we go. Each time I go into my paints, I'm trying to keep my brush clean over here. I don't want to add too much contamination into that well, so you can try and drop it in to try and stop that happening. So I've got a nice amount of yellow in there. It's already a dull yellow because of the under paint that was sat on the palette, so that's almost there actually. So rather than change all of this to this sort of dull yellow, I'm just going to pick up a tiny bit of my blue and mix it on one side. There we go, a dull green. So it's almost a grey green there. If you think it's a little bit too grey for your liking, then just drop some more yellow in. Just play around with the colours till you get what you want. You're never going to mix exactly what I've got here. It would depend on your colours, it would depend on your amount of pigment in your paints, etc. So I'm just adding some more blue to this puddle here. Just want to try and get a little bit more green into that. It's all trial and error. When you think you just can't get it, it's just because you need to spend time doing this. And then after a while you start to get a little bit closer to what you want. So let me just use this piece here that I've got just to test out the colour I've mixed there. And that is a lovely olive green. It could probably do with being a little bit stronger. Got a lot of water in there. But that's a nice background wash to start my painting off. Let's see what the yellow looks like. Swatching out your colours enables you to see what colours look like side by side. So that muddy yellow, which is lovely and muted, looks really quite nice against the burnt sienna there. And if I pop the leaf back on, you can see that it's not far off, is it? So have a go at mixing up some greens using ultramarine blue and your cadmium yellow, or something similar, a warmish yellow. So the warm yellow, which is warmer than the lemon, and a warm blue, which is warmer than a cool blue, which is more of a greeny turquoise. Those two warm colours, warm yellow and warm blue, have a tiny bit of red in them, and as you know, on the colour wheel, red is opposite green. So if you're adding a little tiny bit of red into your colours, you're going to mute that green down so it's not so vibrant. Going to try and get some reds going. So again, I'm using a part of the palette here that's previously had a little bit of colour on it, but it looks like it's had a crimson and a bit of yellow. Over here I've got blue, which you can't quite see, so there's a bit of blue there, so I'm trying to avoid the blue area. That's just because I'm too lazy to clean my palette. So I've got a nice bit of red there, and probably going to drop some more of that cadmium yellow next to the red, so that if I want to, I can pull them together and make an orange. You can just see that going. You may not be able to see, but the yellow is pushing the red away. When you mix colours like this on the palette, you see the sort of things that they get up to. So yellow is weaker than red, but when you put it next to red, it tends to push it away. So I've got myself a red, I've got myself an orange. I'm going to pop a little bit of colour here, which is the crimson. Just alizarin crimson. I'm trying to keep my colours simple. This is a beginner's class, so if I keep the colours simple, you might have a chance of actually completing a painting without buying hundreds of colours. That's for later, if you want to. You don't have to. So my burnt sienna is previously from when I was doing the swatches I showed you earlier. So I'm just going to mix these two together here. Got a nice lovely mix of burnt sienna on the side there. So far I've got yellow, orange, pink and olivey green and dull yellow. My olivey green and dull yellow have mixed beautifully together, so that's fine. We'll just go with what we've got. And over here is my homemade burnt sienna paint, which, just to get that woken up, I need to throw some water on that. Let's see how easy it is. This is the homemade one. I'm just working my brush into it. It's interesting because obviously if you buy burnt sienna, it's going to have all sorts of things to help it re-melt with the water, and I've got a lump of paint in there, but nevertheless I've still got paint on my brush, so I'm just dropping that into my puddle of burnt sienna. So that worked fine. I just had to work a little bit harder. Okay, let's have a look at what we would put on the paper. Foliage, and today we're going to do rowan berries, and on the last video we did a little bit of cling film, and the link will be in the description below if you want to pop back and look at that one. This one we're going to go back to our leaf printing. Now these look quite interesting, don't they? Quite big, so let's see how we get on. What I've done is swatched a few colours out that I think will work with an autumn colour scheme. These are quite weak because I've added lots of water. I've got burnt sienna, we've got cadmium red, we've got cadmium yellow mixed together to make an orange, and then we've got an olivey green, which is just the cadmium yellow and ultramarine blue. And if you add the ultramarine blue back to the burnt sienna at the beginning, you get a lovely dark. So dark is your friend in paintings to help you introduce contrast and make a focal point a little bit more interesting, or just give the picture more depth. So that's a really lovely mix of burnt sienna and ultramarine to make your own darks. The tempting thing to do here is to draw this and paint each individual berry, maybe draw the leaves and paint those. There's nothing wrong with that at all, but I'm not going to do that. Let's keep life a little bit more fun. First thing I'm going to do is clean my paper and stick down. This is Arche cold press paper. This is cotton paper, but please use whatever you have. If you've got a textured paper, such as a rough watercolour paper, you will find that gives you even more interesting patterns and shapes. But texture is not for everyone. I have to say that if you're not a texture person, then I would go and pick your berries or use a photo and just use your eye, draw it and paint it, because texture isn't for everyone. So what I'm going to do here is dampen all the paper using my handy sponge, but you can use your brush, anything you've got handy. This just speeds up the process. So it's nice and damp, so I'm going to start throwing in my colours. I'm not really worrying too much about a composition here, but I'm always aware I need to leave some area of light. So I'm going to sort of take this top left hand corner as my light, then putting a colour next to yellow. If I put green next to yellow, it will just mix and turn that olivey green into a zingier green. If I put my red next to yellow, it's obviously going to mix into an orange, and we've got some berries going on here, so let's throw a bit more red in here. I hope you can tell that I've got no particular way I'm doing this. I hope that shows. Is just throw it on, have some fun. Add a bit more water if things aren't moving. Add some of that burnt sienna and blue somewhere. Can help with hinting at darks within your painting. I might have overdone that, but that's fine. Now let's get some greens on. So I want my cadmium yellow, a touch of the blue in there, and just pop that on. Doesn't matter if it's not mixed properly. I'm not fussy about these things. You may be, that's absolutely fine. Do it as carefully as you like. Can you see I've got a little bit of blue pigment there? So that green is obviously going to mix with the orange and dull everything down there. That's fine. So I've got a little bit of a volcano going on here. So at this point, with all that water on there, this is the cotton paper for you. Look at that. So you get an awful lot more going on, which as it mixes will dull, but this is our first layer. So I'm just keeping that diagonal there, watching the colours do their thing. I've got a little bit of pigment here from the cadmium, so I'm just going to tickle that into the mix a little bit. All sorts of bits of pigment there, that's fine. Brush hair there. Impossible to get that off. That's gone. Right. So you can see it's a very soft background wash. It's not heavy with colour. There's a little bit of dark area there. It's a little bit of suggestion of darks down here. That's it. I'm going to let that dry now. A bit later, I've just been drinking my coffee. This is all dry. I had it in the window in the sun because if you're using cotton paper it takes a lot longer to dry. And I'm just popping my inspiration on. Now these leaves are very big. They're not the easiest of leaves to print with. So we're going to be sort of think about how we would do this. So we've got a small leaf here, and then this big leaf, if I tried to print with that, it would be very difficult. So I'm just going to take a couple of different size leaves off of it. And let's just have a think. So for those of you who remember the leaf printing video, the trick is to make sure your colours are not too wet. So I'll rinse my brush out and I'm just going to squeeze some of the water out of it. Pick up some paint. If it's not quite rich enough, I might have to try this again. So a rich paint on the back of the leaf where most of the texture is gives you a better effect. Now these are not the easiest of leaves. I don't know if you can see it's balling up on the leaf and making it quite difficult, but let's have a little go. So I'm just going to think, where would I want the leaf to go? Press down, lift up, press down. So I'm using the same leaf 2 or 3 times, but following a line as if it was on a branch. So that one's slightly smaller, so let's switch to this one. Just grab some more yellowy paint into that olivey mix. It may not be enough of a colour to stand out, but let's give it a go. And you've got your real leaves and your real branches nearby for you to use as a reference, trying to follow the pattern of a branch so it curves around. So let's carry that on. Tell you what, let's try a different technique. Let's dip it into the paint itself. I think that might make it too wet, but there's only one way to find out. Pop it on opposite the other leaf I printed because that's how they are in nature. That one's worked quite well. Doesn't matter if you get smudges and things. So yeah, you want your paint to be a little bit sticky, not running. And then let's just pop this one into a slightly darker burnt sienna and ultramarine blue mix. Oops, way too much on that one, you can see there, but that's fine. Let's go the other way. There we go. So I've used just 2 leaves and created effectively what could be a whole branch there. So I'm going to do the same down this way. I'm not going to worry if it doesn't work. If some of these are looking a bit splodgy and it doesn't look good, honestly, don't worry about it. Just keep going. If you're finding that a rowan tree is too difficult, I'd suggest that you go and get some rose leaves or something flat with a nice vein on it, and you'll be surprised how much easier they are. Now I've just noticed picking this up that the end of the branch the end of the leaf, sorry, has one leaf pointing straight up. So I definitely need to get that in. So let's make that one orange. So with these leaves, it seems to be easier to drop them directly into fairly sticky paint. Okay, let's carry on with that one. I'm just making it up as you go along, really. So we've got one there. Let's start here. Might have put that in slightly the wrong place because I want some berries in here. So let's tell you what, let's assume that our leaf is going to be coming out from behind the berries. This is where your artistic license, the way that you see things, or the way that things are going to suit your painting better, this is when you start to think about it in that way. So that's where the leaf should go, but it doesn't suit my painting, so I'm going to put it here. And if you start doing that in your work, you'll find that your work has a nice freshness to it. It's not just going to be flat stayed. The branch was there, I had to paint it. You don't. It's a painting. You can do what you like. I'm getting some edges on these, but not many. They're quite difficult. Now that area there is naturally red. So just for a moment, I'm going to switch over to my brush again. Pick up my cadmium red and mix it into the bottom of this orange puddle here. So I'm getting my berries for inspiration. Just going to make this into some sort of berry collection. I'm going to put a few solid berries on, keep moving my brush into different parts of the orange. Some of them are more yellow than others, bearing in mind what's underneath the paint here. So if I'm going over blue, the orange that is left after it's dry will be darker, or duller should I say, than these ones that are going over yellow or red from before. You can leave little dots if you want for highlights. But before I go much further with that, there's another way we can bring out some berries. You could use a circle stencil or something similar, but I'm going to try and keep it simple. So I'm just going to go and grab a brush. At this point I've been cleaning my brush on an old flannel. They're quite handy because you can wash them and use them again. I'm now going to switch to paper towel, and there is a reason for that, which I'll show you. Number one, if you've put some colour down and it's looking way too strong, lift it off again. Subtle, much more subtle. Number two, if you don't have a circle stencil, and they're ever so easy to get hold of on Amazon, but just use a stiff nylon brush. Even a child's craft brush is perfect for this, and just lift off some circle shapes. Let me just zoom in a little bit for you. So these have been painted on. I'm now lifting off some shapes and then dab with your paper towel. Now lift off works best where there is a darker underpainting. So if I did it in the middle of the so if I did it in the middle of this cadmium yellow, you might not even see where I've been, but let's give it a go. Just keep going. You can just about see it. So this sort of painting is quite a patient painting, as you can just sit and dabble away using lift out like so, and then popping on next to those areas. Try and link your shapes together, and if they're too strong or you just want variation on them, just lightly dab some of that off again. And if you keep going, you will build up an impression of the berries, not an exact copy. I'm just going with where I decided to go next. So I could even use this little nylon brush just to do a little circle like that if it had a mind to. But as you can see, that was worse than using a pointed brush. So no, we won't use that. So just taking out a couple more. This just gives you depth. It makes you look into the painting instead of just blobbing a load of berries on, which won't look quite so natural. This is still not the finished article because we can add even more depth after this. This is a painting for a long, slow afternoon with a bit of drying time in the middle, so you've got to allow for spending time just waiting for things to dry. If you're still watching this whilst you paint, hopefully the best thing you are doing is not really taking much notice of what I'm doing and where I'm doing it, is just getting the idea and going for it yourself. So if you find, like I've just found, that all my berries are all in lines, start linking them together. So these are like the background berries, they're reflecting some light, and then we put in the other ones back on top. But as we get down to the foreground area, the pretend foreground, there's no real foreground, it's just a flat piece of paper, I can afford to make these a little bit bigger, as if suggesting the berries are getting slightly bigger because these ones are nearer. If you try and do this with a normal soft brush, it would take you a lot longer, so try and get a stiff nylon brush, anything that's just not designed to hold watercolour, it's just designed maybe even an acrylic brush, but fairly small, and just work away at the paint. Don't scrub hard, sometimes your paper will start to come away, you'll know if it happens, and that's not generally your fault. I very much doubt any of you will be scrubbing that hard on your paper, but the paper, cheaper paper, sometimes just can't cope with that sort of treatment. So it might just be, if you like this technique, you need to upgrade your paper. So I'm just breaking apart those edges on there, because I didn't like that edge. You get the idea. So we're coming forward a little bit. So I've got the brush I was using is quite big, so I'm just going to jump down to a slightly smaller brush and then pop some more berries in. That's quite a soft colour again. I've lost the strength. So I'm just picking up bits of colour. I've got some of the burnt sienna. Just pop in, we're looking at oranges and reds, anything you like in here. And then pop some on, then lift them off slightly. So you're getting variation. So overlap that one with that one. Let's add a bit more red in. You'll have to let me know in the comments how you found this exercise. Is it a little bit difficult? Is it just about right? Has it got you thinking about using different pieces of foliage in your painting? Most importantly, pop a comment down there so I know you're there, because it's quite lonely sitting in Dunluck Studio knowing that some of you are there, but it'd be lovely to hear from you. So these ones are yellow, and because I've put them next to the red ones I've just done, they're just pulling the colour across with them. Right, so now I'm just going to get a little bit more water in my mix here. Add a little bit of burnt sienna and blue, and pop some slightly darker brownier ones in. Got to be careful I don't overdo this bit, because, oops, that's a bit blue, isn't it? Boom, he's gone. So I probably let that layer dry now, and just add some more leaf prints down here, and you could maybe just some coming out of there, so we've got like maybe perhaps a little branch that's on its way up from this area here. Let's just drop that in to give us the idea that there's something coming up here. Not particularly well painted branch, but never mind, just to suggest we have a branch. And I'm going to put a leaf print across this bit. Again, you can lift off the branch just to soften bits of it so it doesn't look so stark. So I've just added a little branch with a gap here. Just going to do some printing in that area. Again, don't try and copy these leaves perfectly. Just get the basic feel of them in. If your paint starts to dry out, you'll notice that you can't get a print. Having used Rowan leaves, I can guarantee you that rose leaves are a lot easier. But that wouldn't be any fun just doing easy things. You could try acorn leaves. I think they're quite stiff, but you could try acorns. Beech is good. Beech leaves. Just because you're painting rowan berries doesn't mean to say you can't put other leaves onto it. Right, switch leaf size and shape. Just mix up a little bit more of my green. It's a little bit wet now. Let's just see how that works. Just a nice big print there. Smudged, doesn't matter. There we go. Switch colours. Okay, that will do for the printing. Now I've got a mixture of orange with ultramarine blue, and using my round brush and a nice smaller size depending on what you're painting on, you can now work your way around some of these berries. If you can't see them, make them up. This is a great way to add depth and to test your brush control skills. It could be interesting. bearing in mind when you're getting near the edge you don't want quite so much of the dark. So you can see all I'm doing is painting the negative spaces between some of these berries, and as before just lightly take them off to soften them up a little bit in places. So you can use, oops, that's gone right into that one, that wasn't quite dry, so that's lesson learnt there. Just check your berries are actually dry. So by doing negative painting you can bring out smaller berries from the background, paint around your lift out areas, and just generally layering up a little bit more than we had before, leaving some gaps. Try and link your shapes together. If that happens, just lift it off. If you're on cold pressed cellulose paper you won't have quite so much trouble, it probably would have dried off quite easily. Cotton paper does tend to hold on a lot longer. Right, so we've got a little bit of depth going on now, just a fraction more. So switch my colour back to my burnt sienna based colour, I think, with a touch of red in it. Now I'm going to give some of the red berries that I lifted, oh, way too much paint on there. Some of these just bring out, doesn't matter if these run back into the berries because they're the colour. So moving around your picture so that you get one colour in more than one place. Don't have it just on one side and then remix and get a different colour, because that gives your painting a disjointed look. It's actually quite nice to look through my camera lens because I can see it building up on a small screen, which is a bit like stepping back. That's another trick. You could take a photo on your phone if you've got a phone that does that, and then decide if you need to adjust something, because you can see it in a small area. It stands that if you make it smaller you'll see the mistakes quite a lot quicker. But remember, they're not mistakes. They're happy accidents that you're going to adjust and make part of your painting. Oops, way too much. There we go. Just roll that brush a bit cleaner. So if I was doing a lot of blue and grey on top of here, it would start to get quite muddy quite soon. I'm just mixing a puddle of the red again, rather than a mixture of things. A touch of yellow in it. And just bringing in some more colour. Because these berries are red, aren't they? So let's pop some colour back in. You can leave some little light areas on them if you want. You can see they've all got a little dark stamen on them. It's up to you if you want to go into that much detail. You can do. I'm just looking at that to see, we've got lots of light ones here, so let me just do a thin wash of red and just pour some of those in. Red's such a dangerous colour, but it's so much fun. Think about the weight of the line, so that if you put a heavier colour or a darker colour on the base of the berry, It's going to suggest it's darker down here than it is up there. Helps to give it a little bit of more life, if you like. I'm just using a damp brush with water only. You can drag some of the red across these berries should you wish to, just to get rid of some of the harshness to some of them. Just leaving a few flecks of light here and there. Then mixing up some blue and some burnt sienna or orange will do. You can just see I've mixed up a, I've just mixed up a dark with the blue and some of the orange. The orange could be cadmium red and yellow or the burnt sienna, it doesn't matter. That's made a nice dark. And you could use the point of your brush. Now these are quite damp, so if I use that brush it will absolutely, completely and utterly drown my picture. So I'm just going to get a tiny little rigger, which is just a very fine edged brush, roll it in the paint, and then try and pick the ones that are slightly more drier. Oops. There we go. Pop in some of these little edges. This is a nice one for using on rosehip paintings. They look really good with these little areas in them. Just dot some of those on some of the dry areas. Just giving a suggestion of berries. If it just runs away, you know you're in a damp area, it's not going to work. These need quite a little bit more of drying off. But you can get away with a few. Have another look from a distance. Oh gosh, lots of light coming in here. You can see a little bit better now. We had a lot of sunshine coming in just then. Just need little dots of dark in one or two of these. Oops. And I just feel I just need a little bit more red right in the centre here. Nice rich red. Overlap with that one. Right, I think that will do for the berries, because you could be here all day. Okay, let's get into getting these leaves done. So I'm going to zoom in, start down this area here. Oh look, there's a real berry sat on top of my berries. I didn't even see it. Right, can't be too far off then as a painting. Got the impression of them anyway. So how would I deal with these leaves? We've got an imprint, not a very good one, but it is definitely there. So the first thing you can do is using a fairly small brush and just having a little look round, see which brush would be ideal for this. I could go for that little rigger. I'm just going to go for another little round one, and I'm going to just pick up some water and pick up some green colour. So just mixing green on the side here, nothing different from before. That's a trick. Don't really want to be adding any more colours at this stage. We've got a whole painting based on simple colours. Let's keep it that way. So if I get my brush, oops, just mix the yellow in. There we go. My brush covered in paint, and just having a look at these leaves, so they're quite close to me, I can just see. I can, if I wish, just try with the point of that brush just to suggest those serrated edges which these leaves have got. So I'm literally just pressing down like so, It's a nice way to study nature doing paintings like this, because you're using nature to show you how to paint these details. Now that's enough for that one leaf. If I go any more than that, it's just going to get too fussy. So leave a few gaps and move on. Slightly vary your colour as you go. Add a little bit of blue or a little bit of yellow. So get in the swing of where those edges would be, then start going a bit more random. Just take your brush for a walk. I love that saying, it's such a good saying. Now here I've got some red berries. I can either choose for the leaf to go over them or behind them. So I'm going to go with the behind the leaf, sorry, behind the berry. So I'm just suggesting the leaf disappears behind there. Put in my little points of a leaf shape. Perhaps leave a gap in the middle of this leaf to suggest the vein. You have to experiment with your brush sizes to see which one of these you can manage. I do have wobbly hands, so it's going okay so far. Now because I put that leaf behind there, I've now got this little gap in here, and hopefully these berries are dry, so I'm very carefully going to pop green in there, so to suggest that that leaf is going right behind all of these berry shapes. In fact, green is quite a nice colour just to pop in some gaps whilst you've got it on your brush, because it is suggesting that there are leaf shapes behind some of these areas. It's all got a little bit messy in here, but hey, that's fine. Okay, so coming back out of that one looks a bit harsh, so I'm just going to do the trick with the paper towel, and maybe in the middle of that one as well. That's better, isn't it? Again, picking up some extra colours into that green, so every time I do a leaf it's slightly different from the last one. Now down here we're going to do something slightly different. So here I've appeared to have lost a leaf behind two berries, so I'm negatively painting a berry there and an imaginary leaf. Now this bit here is the stem that I created, so I'll leave that in there. So I'm just randomly making leaves. It's up to you how much detail you go into. You could do a botanical painting if you wanted to. I'm not very good at those. So for all you botanical painters out there, I do apologise. So mix a little. This is a bigger leaf. I'm changing the colour as I go. Added a little bit more, oh, you can't really see, added a little bit more yellow there. There's a stem on that one, so I don't want to cover all that up. But also looking a little bit like a fern there, which it isn't, so let's just fill a little bit in. There we go, and then magic lift out to soften it, give it a little bit more variety. Et voila. Some of the leaves have got an edge of almost like a burnt orangey colour, so whilst it's damp you could drop some orange in if you wish, just to give it that burnt edge. That's worked quite well, hasn't it? Quite like that. Using the same colour, I'm just going to pop down this one. Oops, a bit too much paint on my brush there. Try and leave that middle vein that's sitting there. The brush has got too much on it, so just take some off. Where I've got a little bit of pattern with my print underneath, just going to ease off a little bit with the paint and let the under print show through. So we're positively painting these leaves, and I'm going to reverse that in a minute. Again, I'm just using the edge of that leaf. I nearly at the end of this run of leaf that I'm going to paint. So this one right on the end here needs to be less defined than the others. There we go. So it's almost fading away on this edge because the focal area is here and this is not the focal area. If you wanted to, you could go back in and get your little rigger and do some little lines to suggest the middle of the leaf. I like the print to do that for me, but if it's not enough for you and you want a bit more detail, by all means grab that rigger, have some fun with it. So that's beginning to look quite nice there. So all I've got there is the green, which is the blue, ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow, and then I've thrown in a bit of burnt sienna just to give the orangey effect. If you haven't got burnt sienna, cadmium red and cadmium yellow makes an orange. That will do the job as well. So what do I do when I get down here? Well, those are greenish leaves. I've got a nice print and a bluey background. So the first thing I'm going to do is clean my brush. And I've left my water over the other side of the studio. Apologise. As you can probably tell, I'm not a professional videographer, and therefore I forgot to put the light on, so you hopefully can see a little bit better. So I'm going to do some negative painting, and do you remember the colour swatch I did at the beginning that had this lovely deep dark in it, which is mostly blue with burnt sienna, and it's got some beautiful textures there just because the blue tends to granulate nicely. So we positively painted the leaves here. I've just noticed this one's still annoying me. That's better. This time I'm going to negatively paint. This brush may be a little bit big. Oh, that's a very rich dark. So I'm going to use the brush to suggest those little edges on the leaf and leave some of the background showing through. And then moving across to this side, I am negatively painting the leaf. In other words, I'm not painting it, I'm painting round it. That's all negative painting means, nothing more than that. You don't paint an object, you paint the spaces between it. So for instance, this leaf here we half did, well we can do the other half by painting around the edge of it. But there's a very important thing to do when you do this sort of painting, is these are the edges of the leaf. This isn't. So as soon as you got that paint down, wash your brush out, lose some of the water, and just gently tickle the edge away so it is no longer a hard edge. It's a soft edge. Edges very, very important in painting. There we go. So we've brought the leaf out by painting round it. Just like before, I'm slightly varying my mix. This is just blue and orange of some sort. That's my branch. So I'm just imagining where these are. It's got a funny extra bit, this one, so don't know what quite happened with my print there, but that's fine. So with this one, I'm just going to follow the line of that branch, which is nothing to do with what's there in reality, just sort of highlights the branch a little bit. We've got a lost area in the middle here, which has got nothing on it, so I'm going to revert back now to painting a leaf positively, but changing the colour to a more bluey green. So this one is gone, the background is a bit paler anyway, so I'm just realising that we haven't got much going on here, so I'm just going to use my imagination, and this is where it gets tricky when you're filming. Just an edge along here, that leaf is going off at an angle, it's not quite correct shape. And pick up some yellow And just try and come back down the other side. Oops, that's not quite working, is it? So I negatively painted that, didn't I? There's me saying I'm going to positively paint it. I did both. Let's just pull that with some water, merge those two sides together, make it look a little bit more natural. Bring this little stem over here as if it's disappearing off, which it then will do because I did that to it, and so will this and that. You start seeing what's too strong in your picture and what's not. So that's working quite well. Pick up a little bit of my blue and burnt sienna mix, quite dark, and just reinstate that branch which is tucked behind a leaf there, and probably tucked behind a leaf there. And then just reinstate along the base of that to suggest it's some sort of branch. Okay, right. It's quite a lot of fiddling there, but I hope you can get the impression of my rowan tree leaf and the berries. So I'm going to continue with this now. If you look at the berries, you can see that some of them are on stems and all of mine are clustered. So I'm going to add some extra berries that are slightly further away from the main event. And this one, this background leaf, I should just probably leave it for now. It's just a nice background shape. Could add a little bit of detail on it. So let's see what happens. Okay, that's going to do. I think I'm quite happy with that. And you get the impression of some rowan leaves, some rowan berries, and using the colours of autumn's palette, or fall, depending where you live in the world. Hope that was useful to you. Lots and lots of techniques in there. Sorry it went on for a little bit longer than I planned, but guess what? Most of my videos do. Thanks for watching, and see you all soon. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a very simple sketch, but it was quite complicated to do, wasn't it? So I've stopped there because you could go completely insane doing this. But hopefully it gave you some of the tips and tricks in order to create a picture and develop this one even further. I could take this further. I could get my watercolour pencils on it. I may well get my liner pen on. Those of you who know me know that I tend to use liner pens sometimes. Either way, I can take this further or not. You must accept that doing this sort of painting sometimes just doesn't work. That's fine. Just give it another go, pick a different subject, and just have some fun. If you can like, subscribe, or drop me a comment or a question, I'd really appreciate it. It helps this channel to grow. It's quite lonely here in Dunnock Studio without you guys, so I really appreciate you spending the time to watch my videos. Happy painting, and I'll see you all on the next video. Bye for now.